trade deadline has now passed. It is over. And so every move that will be made mid-season has been made by now. So we are going to go ahead and go through all of the trades that have been made, tell you if they were good trades, bad trades, if we like them, if we don't like them, if we think it was an overpay, an underpay, yada, yada, yada. There will be some in here that we just don't have anything to say anything on. And we may skip over some. So if there's somebody that we just didn't mention or didn't talk about at all and you want us to elaborate a little bit, just drop it down in the comments down below and we'll respond to y'all. But do you want to kick it off with the first trade that happened this near deadline, which was Amari Cooper to the Bills?
Yeah. Amari Cooper, he was traded with a 6th round pick, and it was in exchange for a 3rd round pick and a future 7th from the Bills. And this was kind of a team that they were pretty good, like still 7-2, and they needed the wide receiver weapons. Keon was not developing as they wanted him to, not quick enough. And so they made that move. And, the first week with Amari, it was like immediate. He got a touchdown. And then the second week, it's not so much like what Amari Cooper produced stat-wise, but it's the fact that Keon Coleman was able to have a come-around game. And when you have a wide receiver one aura, callback, if you know, you know, then, you get those opportunities for your other wide receivers. So big fan of the trade when it happened. We've seen a little bit of what the team looks like with him on it. And so I think it's kind of a home run hit for them, especially with the compensation of it's a 3rd and a future 7th, and then you're getting a 6th. So to me, like the future 7th is kind of negligible given the compensation you're getting as well. So you're not going to get an Amari Cooper for a 3rd round, and you need it this year to help compete in this division, in this conference, not division. So, yeah, I think it was a no-brainer move for them, and it'll pan out really well for them moving forward.
Yeah, I think he was out this week with injury, but his like you said, wide receiver one aura is good for the team to have, and something that they were definitely lacking. And Keon Coleman has really started to come into his own. I know he got hurt this past week, but he was really starting to pop off when Amari Cooper got there, and that's just always good to have. Next up, we've got the Raiders trading Devontae to his old buddy Aaron Rodgers and the Jets for a conditional 3rd round pick. And before the trade happened, this was such a heavily rumored thing that we had already talked about it a little bit. I wasn't the biggest fan of the idea of this, but now that Lazard is down and they've traded Mike Williams, I kind of feel like they probably made out well on this trade. It doesn't fix all their problems, but it does make an improvement at a position that they kind of needed help at. They ended up needing help at. So it was almost like a preemptive trade that worked out really well for them.
Yeah, I think that the conditional 3rd is a nice price point for them. Obviously the Raiders could have gotten a lot more if Devontae Adams wasn't dealing with a hammy. It's just the Raiders were in a tough spot with Devontae after letting getting Derek Carr out of there. They weren't going to get a lot for him, and he's not been the most productive. He was slightly injured, and there was really only one place he was going to go play, and it was going to be with Aaron Rodgers. The Saints were a contender, but then they started dropping games, so that was out the window. Moving forward, this was a great timing-wise thing to happen because, the wide receiver room's a little worse for wear now, but he's got Devontae who can target 11 times in a game, and he knows he's going to have him come down with at least a touchdown in that range. So good trade there.
Yep.
And then next we got the Titans who traded Ernest Jones, who they acquired at the start of this year, to the Seahawks in exchange for Jerome Baker and a 4th round pick. And it's okay. The Titans aren't obviously getting that much out of it. The Seahawks are the ones buying low here with how the Titans performed. But the Seahawks are kind of at that point where they needed an Ernest Jones. Jerome Baker upgrade over they're not equal players. This isn't a lateral move. They are definitely upgrading the linebacker position. I like Ernest Jones a lot. So I have the Seahawks here made a good move. We'll see how it pans out for them after we've kind of had our doubts about where the Seahawks were heading this year, but it's low cost. They get a guy they can very much use on that defense.
Yeah, I also think the trade the Titans made for Ernest Jones was cheaper than this trade that the Seahawks made for him, so they just gained capital. Like, they held him for 8 games and then got additional picks in for having him. So I don't think it's a bad decision, especially if he didn't want to be there anymore, if he was seeing, hey, y'all aren't winning. So yeah, definitely, I think it's just a win-win for both sides there. Honestly, the Titans gain some capital, the Seahawks gain a good player. And then Ernest Jones gets to go somewhere that might win a couple more games than the Titans.
Yep. And then the Titans, they kind of had a nice little fire sale as they also got rid of DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs for a conditional 5th, which was in our, trade video of predictions. My comp was a little higher. But yeah, it's clear that has panned out well for the Chiefs. They had a little bring him along game. They got him 3 targets his first game there. And then this past week, overtime win over the Bucks. It's a 9-target game, 8 receptions, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which is, highs for this year for D-Hop. It's no secret that the Titans were not operating a very functional offense. And you combine Nuke with Andy Reid, and it's going to be pretty productive for both, for the team. So, yeah, I really quite like this trade as, the Chiefs fan in me. And I think that it's a big addition to a hurt wide receiver room.
Yeah, no, it's a home run for the Chiefs for sure. It's such a cheap trade for a good receiver who's probably going to be there for, I don't know. I could see him retiring after this year, but even if he's a 1-year rental, he gets you to the point where you've got Rashee Rice healthy and you get to another draft class where you might be able to add another receiver if you need to. So there really isn't a downside for a conditional 5th-round pick. Because even if it is a 5th-round pick, you're not getting... I mean, D-Hop could tip the scales and make them a Super Bowl contender again. Obviously, undefeated, it's hard to say that they weren't a Super Bowl contender being the Chiefs, but I didn't like how the fashion that they were winning games in, and I think with D-Hop, they can tip back to the actually handedly winning these games. Again, it's tough to say that coming off of an overtime win, but I think they can start actually beating opponents instead of just squeaking out these wins. But next up, we have the Chiefs again making a move. This time it's the Patriots trading Josh Uche to the Chiefs for a 2026 6th. He was signed on as like a 1-year, $3 million prove-it deal, and obviously he and the organization didn't want to continue that arrangement. So getting anything out of a guy who's not going to stick around past this year, I guess, is good. He's not going to tip the scales between us being contenders and not. So I don't hate the move for the Patriots getting off of a guy like that. I do think it would have been nicer to get a little bit more capital, but it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, I think, for the Chiefs, it's... If you compare the cost of what it took to get D-Hop versus this, it's a little odd. But, yeah, I think it was kind of just a luxury thing that they were going to throw this in to help get aspect of the defense a little more depth. So I don't hate it. It's cheap enough where it's like, I'm not going to be upset. It's not like they give up a 4th or a 3rd. It's a nice, cheap move to just kind of help the team at the chances of that 3-peat.
Yeah. Then we got the Panthers trading Deontay Johnson and a 6th to the Ravens for a 5th. And this is another trade of the Ravens where they really aren't losing that much capital. We'll get to another trade where they did basically the same thing. But this is great. I mean, I don't think the Ravens had as big of a need at receiver as a team like the Chiefs because they didn't really have any injury issues there. But I feel like the Ravens are always kind of starved for a good receiver. They're always kind of reaching at the end of the first round for somebody who can make a difference. And they'll get guys who are really good at one thing but just aren't a complete package. So adding more guys to that receiver room is never a bad thing, especially at that price.
Yep. It's a good trade for the Panthers as well, getting a 5th rounder out of this when this year is basically a wash and you just want to stockpile capital and understand that you got to rebuild next offseason.
Yeah.
Next up is the Jaguars trading Cam Robinson along with a conditional 7th round pick of 2026 to the Vikings for a conditional 2026 5th round pick. no-brainer for the Vikings, especially with Darisaw and his injury. This is going to be a crucial move for their depth and the flexibility of their pieces on the O-line. Just moving forward, if any more injuries happen, like they have a good piece that they can trust starting. So it's great for the Vikings, and I hated to see it as a Lions fan.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with everything you said. Losing Darisaw sucks. Adding a quality tackle through trade is something that basically never happens. So the fact that they were able to make it happen and it wasn't expensive is really nice to see for them. So that's basically all the trades that happened prior to the deadline, which was Tuesday, today, the 5th of November at 4 Eastern. So now we're going to get into the trades that happened on the deadline, which is always just a little bit more exciting because it's you're beating a deadline.
You see the clock. It counts down. You're thinking like, okay, when's my team going to make this move? It's exciting for sure.
Yeah, and it's all in one day instead of just like these past trades have been over the past week or two. So it's like, oh, wow, a trade happened. All right, go to sleep, wake up. Oh, wow, another one. This is like a trade happened, refresh the feed. Another one. Wow. So
yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll kick us off with what I think was the first of the day. I mean, obviously it was the first on my radar of the Browns trading Zadarius Smith to the Lions. They also traded a 2026 7th to the Lions, and the Lions gave up a 5th in this year and then a 2026 6th-round pick. Thanks. This is exactly kind of what I had in mind with the Lions in my prediction. Getting the cheaper edge rusher to kind of help bolster a more complete D-line. I don't think our D-line has played necessarily poor. I think that Ali McNeil and DJ Reader have definitely stepped up since Aiden Hutchinson's injury. And this isn't a replacement for Aiden Hutchinson. You're not going to see the D-line go to the productivity it had with Aiden Hutchinson, but you are going to see it improve. I mean, just against the Titans recently, like you're not playing an elite team, and it felt like we had no pressure, and then we play the Packers, and it feels like we have no pressure, and something needs to change, despite the fact that I know our guys are making good moves and they're getting slight pressure. It's just not happening quick enough with enough guys. So adding another guy to make those big third downs lean in our favor, I am definitely a fan of.
yeah, I think this is a bit of an expensive half-year rental. Is my only concern with that, because there's a lot of talk of, oh, the Lions can cut him after this year with no dead cap hit. And it's like, cool, but now you've traded a 5th and a 6th for a 7th and 8 games of an edge rusher, which is, don't get me wrong, it's exactly what the Lions need. It just feels a little bit expensive when you think it's 2 draft picks. 7th rounders to me are basically just like run 20 yards back and throw a dart and see where it lands, and maybe you hit something. But I just see it as a little bit of an expensive 1-year rental. If they can get like another year out of him, I think it'll absolutely be worth it. And if he makes a big difference this year, then obviously it's worth it. If he ends up being a top edge rusher for him, then
yeah. My only counterpoint for that is it's hopefully going to be more than 8 games, and that's the reason why the move's happening is the hopeful return of Hutch in the Super Bowl, as it's kind of keep being talked about as like this could be the absolute earliest he could come back. That would be the hope that we make it there, and this move helps us try to make it there.
Yeah, still 11 games, whatever, but yeah. Then next trade today was the Panthers sending Jonathan Mingo, another one of their receivers, and a 7th-round pick to the Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. Now, Elijah, over the past, we'll call it 4 games, how many catches do you think this guy that just got traded for a 4th-round pick has? It's got to be pretty good, right? He's got to be a pretty good player.
You got to compare it, really. It's like there's Amari Cooper, that was a 3rd. Devontae Adams, that was a 3rd. DeAndre Hopkins is the conditional 5th. Like, that's basically, you could think high-end 4th for that. And so he's probably got like 400 yards on the year. He's got to be a pretty solid guy just on a bad team, right?
Yeah, what if I told you over the past 4 games he has a single catch? 1.
Is it a 98-yard catch?
No, it's not. It was like a 1-yard catch, actually.
Impressive stuff. The Cowboys, Jerry Jones, why make this move? You've needed wide receiver help probably starting like 3 weeks ago. And now Dak's hurt. And it's like, yeah, we'll make our moves now. It's deadline time. Let's have some fun. It's all about entertainment down in Jerry's world, all right? Like, shut up.
I can't wait for Trey Lance to throw for 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 2 picks for the rest of the season. And Dak just stays benched after he comes back from IR. Jonathan Mingo turns into an all-pro player, and we all just look silly for this. But
Jonathan Mingo, Triple Crown winner, despite only playing half the year, really.
Something like that, yeah. But moving on to, I think, probably the biggest trade of the deadline. We had some receiver moves, but this is like a guy in his prime for the most part. I think maybe a year past it. But this is Marshawn Lattimore plus a 5th-round pick going to the Commanders for a 3rd, 4th, and 6th-round pick. This is the biggest hole on the Commanders roster is DB, and they added what I would assume is probably the best player that was available to them at the deadline.
Yeah.
And this is home run trade. I'm a little bit higher, I think, on Marshawn Lattimore than you are. But I definitely think this was a great trade for the Commanders.
Yeah, I'd say Marshawn Lattimore, he's probably, to me, he's a few more years past prime, but he's still good. He's still a great player, and you're giving up a lot in terms of what this, trade deadline has shown us. These are like nice little penny pinching trades everyone's making, besides the Cowboys for whatever damn reason. And the Commanders, they're giving up more of a haul than everyone else we've mentioned so far, but they're getting a crucial piece to the team that can help bring along the younger guys that they need to help be brought along, because they've really been struggling in that department. And yeah, I'm a big fan of this trade. Like, I didn't need to be that big of a fan of Marshawn Lattimore when he was with the Saints. It's simply that I know what the Commanders have right now and what they need right now. And this is a perfect, cohesion. Like, the Lions with Zadarius Smith. Like, that's way lower tier on, where I am hype about it, because the Commanders, it's a bigger void, I feel, and it's a bigger improvement of quality of player you have. It's better quality over the replacement that they are moving down the depth chart because of it. And yeah, it's a home run hit. I think, honestly, out of all of the trades, this is my favorite when I remove any team bias of the deadline day. Now, DeAndre Hopkins, with the cost of that, that's kind of a no-brainer for best overall. But for deadline day, Marshawn Lattimore is a huge one for sure.
Yeah, and I think the funniest part to me as a Patriots fan is just seeing Patriots fans and Commanders fans talking, because Christian Gonzalez was picked 1 pick after Emmanuel Forbes, and Forbes is now benched. So they could have had a lockdown corner in the draft and then kept all their picks, but it is what it is, and having a bad corner kind of helped them get Jaden Daniels and have a bad enough season to get some good draft picks. So I can't say that it's
it ushered in a new regime, and now they're 7-2. They can't really be that mad about Gonzo.
They're 7-2. We're 2-7. I can't say that we're better off. But yeah, then we get into one of your predictions from back in our trade prediction video. That was almost bang on. The Jets trading Mike Williams to the Steelers for a 5th. I think you had him going for a 6th. But
I think that was a kind of trend throughout all of my predictions, is I was basically around high on most of the trade compensations. But I got all the players and the teams right, -1. I got the Commanders getting a much worse corner. Thank goodness they didn't do that. More power to them.
Who was it that you had them trading for?
I had them getting Greg Newsome II.
That's right. Okay. I forgot
but
about that.
Talking about the Jets and Mike Williams, good move for the Steelers. Good cost. I don't have a lot to talk about the Steelers on. Don't have a lot to talk about the Jets on that we haven't already said.
I don't love this move, honestly. I feel like Mike Williams is past anything. Yeah. And that's a 5th-round pick. Like, if you think about it in terms of this is what DeAndre Hopkins went for, it gets a little bit tougher to swallow that pill for the Steelers. But again, if he balls out, that's all that matters. We can't condemn any of these trades without seeing them in action. Maybe Mike Williams just wasn't being properly utilized, and maybe he's still recovering from his injury last season. So we really can't say anything until we see him suit up for the Steelers. And wide receiver was a big need for them. So, but now we get into the last trade of the day, which was the Rams sending Tre'Davious White and a 2027 7th-round pick to the Ravens for a 2026 7th-round pick.
Wow.
This is
What penny
another
pinchers.
yeah, this is another one of like the Cam Akers trade. This is, we're cutting this guy. Does anybody want him? This is the trade that's going to go through. And I think you looked into the situation a little bit more than I did, but I know that Trey White wasn't making a difference on the Rams, and so they were going to cut him. And the Ravens were like, let's avoid the whole waiver claim situation and let's just get him now.
Yeah, and let's just do a nice little swap here of far future sevenths here and get this done. So the situation with Trey White was, he's coming off of this oft injured status he's kind of had in the league, and he came in and he played the first 4 games of the year, and then he became a healthy scratch for the team, being benched, not playing, just inactive, not suiting up on game days since the 4th game of the year. And when you have a guy who's just kind of riding along, just we're going to cut him. Yeah, it's a fair trade. The Ravens have been struggling on the pass defense, so they're getting a guy they hope will help. If he's not helping the Rams, who have a pretty scarce DB room, I'm not sure what help he brings to the Ravens except for some extra depth. Maybe he'll see the field and actually produce better than he did with the Rams. We'll have to see. But it comes at really no cost to the Ravens, so why not try it?
And maybe he's just going to be a mentor to Nate Wiggins. That's also a real possibility. Drafting a young corner and seeing how that goes. But that is all we got for the trade reactions segment. If y'all want to let us know your thoughts on these trades, let us know if you agree, disagree. If you want our thoughts on any other players that we didn't mention, definitely drop those down in the comments below. If you're here for just the segment video, check out the podcast dropping tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central on Spotify and YouTube. Check both those out.